This video has been brought to you by the Landscape Certified Contractors Association. Due to the membership support, we're able to bring content to each and every one of you. If you have a topic or a product you'd like us to review, or if you want to become a member, visit www.irrigatortech.com and hope to hear from you soon. Enjoy the video. Okay, so today we're going to go over tree development and identification. So this is part of our Certified Maintenance Technician series. And so we're going to go over a couple topics. So most commonly used trees in landscaping for Southern California. Basic tree structure, how they grow, how trees enhance the landscape overall. Okay, so for structure, our trees have three main components, right? We have the root system, which is the most important. We have the leaves, and then we have the woody structure that connects all of them, right? So with our roots, they bring water, minerals into the plant, right? So that's why they're the most important. They bring in the water, they bring in the minerals, so that's what pulls it in. The leaves feed the tree. Okay, so they absorb carbon dioxide in the air and use the sunlight through photosynthesis to create energy, right? They create a sugar, right? And then when the water and everything comes up through the roots into the woody part of the tree, the trunk, up to there it creates the sugar, and then the tree gives off oxygen, right? So yesterday we learned that the plants, if they're indoors or in a closed space, they'll pull in all the CO2, and then once it's depleted, then they just stop growing, right? So that's why plants need to have a lot of open air. They need to have a lot of space to grow. And when you have a tree that's real dense and it hasn't been pruned for a long time, there's not enough air flowing through it. It'll cause the tree to not grow as well. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the tree structure a little bit more. So again, we covered there's three components: root system, the leaves, and then the woody material, which connects everything, right? So let's take a look at the root system. So there's four things that the root system does for us. Anchorage, so we were just kind of talking about that, right? That's what holds it up, right? So it could sway a little bit. Storage, right? So it stores minerals, water, absorbs it in, and then conduction, so it gets it up, right? Conduction pulling up, right? So the main function of large roots are anchorage, storage, conduction, and it's the small root system, the absorbing roots, so the ones that are up on top, that right, that's what would it?
Absorb nutrients.
Yeah, absorbs our nutrients, right? So absorption. So here, these would be our larger roots, right? And then up on top, right? So you'll ever know, as far as irrigation standpoint, when you're by, definitely you'll know when you're by a palm, right? Because you're digging your line and then you see there's all these little roots all over the place, right? That's our upper layer, right there. So for our leaves, our leaves are food producers, right? Have cells with chloroplast that contain the green pigment chlorophyll, right? So chlorophyll, I know it's stupid, but I always think of Billy Madison. Have you seen that movie?
Yeah.
He's like, chlorophyll, more like borophyll. That's what I think of it. Whatever gets you to remember, right? So this is the process of photosynthesis, is the creation of that chlorophyll, right? So transpiration, something that they do. So they actually, the leaves control the temperature of the plant, right? So they have transpiration, which is sweating, right? We could think of that. So they have the pores in there. So that's what gets out water vapor, right? So it cools down the leaves because the leaves will burn. We know that when we don't water and we get that burn, that's because the leaves got too hot, just like us, right? We burn. So that's why we water more obviously in the summer or something like that. Make sure that there's water for that plant to cool itself. It actually pulls more water out of the ground to cool itself than it does to use for photosynthesis. So that's pretty interesting. Right, and so the leaf surface, actually they absorb the sunlight and carbon dioxide. So it needs those two things that do photosynthesis. And then we have the woody structure. So this is the trunk, the branches. So we have the cadmium layer. So that's the thin sheath of dividing cells, right? That produce, that's what becomes the vascular system. So the up and down, right? So we have the xylem and the phloem. So on here, we have the heart. The cadmium layer is the outside layer, right? So that's where all the conduction is, where the water minerals go up and the chlorophyll, sugars and everything go down, right? So that's why I said the palms don't have that layer. That's why they don't heal themselves, right? We have the sapwood, so where the xylem, like I said, conducts water, so the xylem pulls it up. It's like a little highway. Then we have the heartwood next. So this is the inner part in here. So this is the non-functioning xylem tissues. So these are the abandoned ones. You know, when we look, when we cut a tree in half, what have we always been told? That we can see how old the tree is, right? That we count the rings, right? That's not necessarily true, but what you're actually looking at is we're counting the heartwood, which is the old cadmium layer from a growing season, right? So then once it dies out, then it becomes heartwood, and then now the new cadmium's on the outside, and then it dies. So it's a season. As it grows, it outgrows itself, right? So then the bark, that one's pretty self-explanatory, right? That's the protected layer. It's like our skin. So really a tree is, and this is for all woody plants, they're pretty much exactly like us, right? We have muscles, right? We have veins. So veins are like our xylem and our phloem, right? Pumping blood and then pulling blood back, pumping blood, pulling blood back. You know, bark is like our skin. You know what I mean? There's a lot of correlations between it. But you can see why if there's, you know, severe damage, like when cars hit trees or something like that, or your tractor tears into the tree, you can see what it's disrupting all in that tree. So something we don't really think about, which kills a lot of trees, is construction damage. So if you're running, or root pruning, right? When we, you guys do all the work at the city, right? So if you have a lifted sidewalk, you guys repair it, right?
Yeah.
So you guys pull it out, you tear out the roots, right? So now that root, not only is it weaker at that point, but now all of its absorbing roots are gone from that side, and then you're going to pack it back down, right? So you're compacting it, depleting the oxygen, and then you put it, you know, the sidewalk back in. You know, you're not going to see that damage for, could be a couple of years, right? But eventually,
just remove the tree though.
If it's bad, yeah. Well, yeah, that's the best thing to do. Yeah. You know what I mean? You're just, a lot of people will just root clean. They call it root
just clean out that space.
Clean out all the roots, man. They'll dig down, clean it out, put new topsoil, pack it all down, and then just put it back in, right? So damaging the whole thing. Okay, so twig anatomy. This is kind of where, when we go outside, when we cut a twig, we'll look at this. We got the terminal bud. So that's the bud at the end, right? So that's the one that's growing right now. Lateral bud, so this is the vegetation bud. So this will be the lateral bud, where it's popping out another twig with the leaf or something like that. The leaf scar left from the twig after the leaf falls, right? So we'll see that. So there'll be a leaf scar right underneath. The node, so the node is where you want to cut if you're going to prune, right? So slightly enlarged portion of the stem where the leaves are blood, or the buds have a rise. So that's goes out. So you want to cut at an angle, and we'll look at that, right? And then the internode, so that's the region between the stem and the successive nodes. So the internode is between the two nodes, which is where there'll be a bud scar or a twig coming out. And when you look at a branch, you can really see that. That's usually indicates what it grew in that season, right? So when you want to cut it back, you want to cut it back at that because there's already a knuckle involved right there. So you're not cutting in the middle of the branch, you want to cut at a node.